Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I just want to let you know that this is being recorded and we are going to capture all of the questions that are answered today and put them in a document that will be posted on the KDE RFA page on the competitive grants website right underneath the RFA for this grant, the KyCL. You'll be able to find this recording if you want to go back and look at it. And you'll also see a document that has all the questions and answered listed so that you can refer to that easily. We're so glad to have you here today. And today is all about answering your questions. So you have two options. You can put them in the chat box. Danielle is here with me today and she's going to be watching the chat box. And you're welcome to put questions in the chat box and we'll answer them. Or if you want to unmute your mic and answer questions, you're welcome to do that as well. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. That's our agenda today, just to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to start asking.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Sherry, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
We are pursuing an additional supplementary vendor. And I know we have our three primary vendors that we have selected for each category, such that birth to 5 and K to 5, and then middle and high. We've chosen, and we're so excited from the vendor list that you've provided, but we're also interested in an additional supplementary vendor. So I have been working on the EE forms, and that will be a requirement, correct, to do that before the grant is awarded? I just wanted to confirm that before I sent that in tomorrow.
Okay, that's a really good question. If you are doing a supplementary, you've already chosen a primary professional learning provider off of our list of ones that are already approved, and you want to do a supplementary, you do not have to turn that in by the 6th. However, if you're awarded, you would have to turn that in to get approval to add that supplementary professional learning provider into your plan. What happens is the only people who need to do elevating evidence and turn it in by November 6th are the people that are going to use as someone off the list as a primary provider. But if it's a supplementary provider, someone that you're going to use along with the person on the list, then you do not have to do that by November 6th. Like I said, you will have to do it though before you can use them. It'll have to go through the approval, but it does not have to be approved before you submit your application, which is due on December 16th. And that elevating evidence packet is due November 6th.
Okay, one last question.
Yes.
We are considering going ahead and submitting that because we would like to allocate some of those funds in our grant narrative. So it would be helpful to know possibly if that supplementary vendor would be approved. Do you think that's still a good reason to go ahead and turn it in?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. You're welcome to go ahead and turn that in if you would like to.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm gonna let my dog out while you all are thinking of a question. There must be a squirrel in my backyard or something, and so she's getting a little stressed over it. She's got to go see it. What other questions do you have? Someone said, is there a certain time that we need those? Let me look to see what it says on the schedule. I don't know if it says a certain time. It doesn't say a certain time, so as long as you have those in by 12 o'clock on the 6th, it'll be fine.
Another question in the chat, Dana says, could you clarify what needs to be approved by the site-based councils? Is it the literacy plan?
Yes, it's the literacy plan that includes your professional learning plan. So it is your literacy plan, and your district literacy plan is what's required when you submit the grant. You have to turn in a district literacy plan. However, when you're awarded, you're going to need to have a literacy plan for each one of your schools as well. So when the site-based are signing, they're saying that they're on board with the grant. They're on board with professional learning providers that you all are thinking about using. They are aware of, and site-based might not at all the schools might not have been a part of writing the district literacy plan. They absolutely will for the school. But as far as the district literacy plan, they might not, but they're signing to say, we know what the district's plan is. We know we're on board with supporting this grant, and we are on board with, the professional learning plan and are aware of what it is. The main reason that that is a part of the grant is because it does require a lot of professional learning hours, and we have to have our principals on board, our site-based on board, so that they can lead that work in the schools. And so it's that signature is just saying we're committed to being a part of this grant. But again, the district literacy plan is what you turn in with your application. The school literacy plans can be submitted to us after you're awarded the grant. If you don't already have them, that's fine. It's the district, and the district should not only talk about the needs of your district, identify needs, but also identify what professional learning you would like to use to address those needs. While we're waiting for someone to answer a question, I want to make sure that you all know, if you were at the very first technical assistance that we provided, that was just general information about the grant. There was something that was said incorrectly, and I want to make sure that you know that in this grant, you may only use 2% of your total grant funds on technology devices. And it does have to be approved. It's not just a given that you can use the 2%. It's got to be approved. If you just always keep in mind, this is a professional learning grant. And so if you ask for something technology related, then you're going to need to explain how does that fit into our goal of professional learning for teachers. And so just wanted to make sure you knew that the amount was incorrectly stated in the first one. And we did catch that and put that in several other things. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew that in this grant, only 2% of your total can be used on any technology. But like I said, it would have to be approved prior to that purchase.
Here's a question, Dana. Is there a suggestion on the percentage of the grant that should be spent on PD services?
There's not. Keeping in mind it's your number one thing. This is a professional learning grant, but no, there's not an amount. And the reason is because the different providers charge different amounts. And so it really depends on which provider you choose, or if you choose a primary provider plus a supplementary to meet your needs. And so no, there's not. Now, do remember that in this grant, the way the funds have to be broken up is 16% has to be spent on birth, anything you do for connecting with families prior to kids even getting in school. So that's birth all the way to age 5. You spend 16% of your total grant funds on that. You spend 42% on your elementaries, and you spend 42% on your middle and high. So those are percentages that are required. Other percentages that are written in the grant is the salary. You can only pay one person a salary, and you can pay 50% of their salary if they're going to work as a grant director, manager, / literacy coach. So if they're going to actually be going to the schools and coaching teachers along with directing the grant, you can pay 50% of their salary through grant funds, but they would have to do a time and effort sheet showing that they spend 50% of their time working on grant activities. Or you could choose to do 30% of just a grant manager, someone who's only managing the grant, and they would still have to do a time and effort sheet that shows that they're spending 30% of their time on the grant. So you choose one of those. You may only pay for that portion of a salary for one person. So it's either 50% for grant manager / literacy coach, or 30% for a grant manager, and that's it. Any other amounts that you pay out cannot be salaries. You might choose to do some stipends if that's what you all decide to do, but it is only, salary is only for one person. So I want to keep that in mind. So within the grant, the percentages that they talk about are the grant funds can be used for that grant manager, literacy coach, or grant manager alone. And then it also mentions 16% for early, 42 for elementary, and 42 for middle and high.
Okay, here's a question, Dana. On the elevating evidence document, one question asks what percentage of the budget the professional learning provider would cost. Given each year of award is a different amount, should the percentage be calculated as a whole out of the 3-year total or calculated per year?
For the application, you can just calculate it per year. We're going to be, when you write a plan, when you turn in this application, you submit your plan, you can, as you're going through, it might change as you go through, and it's fine if it changes as you go through. We'll be meeting with anyone that's awarded and talk through the plan. And when it's talking about the percentage, you can do it for year one, the budget for year one for the application. And you'll know that because if you call professional learning providers that you are interested in and you ask them about what they have to offer and all of the services that they could provide for you, if you decide, they would give you an amount and tell you what it would cost to use their services.
But for the elevating evidence document, just the 1 year would be fine?
Yes.
Okay.
The elevating evidence again is due tomorrow, and it's fine if you turn it in by 12 o'clock at night tomorrow. That's fine. There's not a specific time listed, so that's fine.
Here's another question. So even though the question only asks for the percentage of the resource, we need to do that if it is a provider as well?
So if you're doing the elevating evidence packet, if there is anything that talks about resources, then you would answer when you're doing an elevating evidence packet for resources, you answer the resource question. When you're doing it for a professional learning provider, you don't have to answer that question. But I will tell you, for the application, you do not need to turn in an elevating evidence form for resources. You only have to turn elevating evidence packets in if you want to use a different primary professional learning provider than the one that is listed, the ones that are listed in the RFA. However, if you're awarded, you would need to do an elevating evidence packet on resources. That is something different with KyCL than Circle. Circle, there was a different process. But with KyCL, anytime you want to use a resource, you'll fill out a packet so that guides you in looking at research and thinking through the effectiveness of what you're considering, and you will turn that in for approval. You do not need to do that for the application, but you would need to do that if you were awarded. So again, any questions on elevating evidence that talk about resources is for when you're getting resources, and anything that's about strategies. It wouldn't necessarily be, it might be professional learning, but it might be the strategies that the professional learning provides. So that's something to keep in mind. For example, if you were interested in Orton Gillingham, then your elevating evidence packet would focus on structured literacy strategies. We encourage you to try to find multiple research studies and research studies that are not tied to the vendor. And so you need to think about what strategies that vendor is going to teach. So Orton Gillingham is structured literacy strategies. So your elevating evidence packet would be on research related to structured literacy strategies. So any questions on that packet that talk about research related strategies for professional learning are the only ones you would answer if you're trying to figure out, if you're trying to get approval to use a different primary provider. Had to let him back in. What else are you guys wondering? We have 20 people in the meeting, so you just feel free to ask anything you want. Some of you might just be here to listen, to hear what other people ask, but please ask if you have something. This is our last opportunity to answer questions about the grant, except for the going through the mailbox. You can go through the KDE RFA mailbox. It's the address is listed in the RFA, and you can answer questions there and you'll get the answers. They would, any questions that are answered today will go on our document. Any questions that were asked yesterday will go on our document, and any question that comes to the mailbox will go on our document too. So that'll all be posted on the KDE competitive grants website for you to see. Danielle posted the address for you to send questions to that mailbox, but this is our last day to answer them in person. So we have while I'm waiting for questions, we have we have 2 more technical assistance related to this grant. It's on the 18th and the 19th of November. And on those days, we'll be talking about actually writing the grant and what are some things you need to remember to put in the grant. So please join us on those days at 9 o'clock if you're interested in getting more information about actually writing the grant. The grant is due December 16th. The application is due on the 16th. It's always a good idea to apply early. You never know what's going to happen with technology. If it does not get there on the 16th, it won't be accepted. And so it has to be there on that day. So you might want to set a day a few days before as your goal to make sure that everything gets there. The other thing is to really be sure you blind copy everything. KDE has let us know that if you do not send a blind copy that has every single name of people, place, and places that are, taken out or masked, that your application would not be scored. And so please be sure that you think about that. It's always a good idea to get somebody else to go and look at it to make sure that you haven't forgotten something. Sometimes you put something within a body of the narrative or within a body of a letter. It might mention something, and so you just want to make sure you take time to mask everything. So you'll turn in one copy that has everything visible, and then you'll turn in a second copy that is blinded, that has everything in the same orders, all of the same stuff, but just no names of places or people. That's for fairness in scoring. so that when people are scoring, they get the blind copy and they have no idea what district they're scoring. So it's for fairness in scoring.
Dana, the next question is, please clarify the difference between the cover sheet and the assurance page.
The cover page and the assurance is the same thing. And if you go into if you look under KDE Competitive Grants website under the RFA, you'll see there's an updated RFA. And in the updated RFA, it does not change really the contents, but there are clarifications made. And the clarifications are made in a dark red. And one of those clarifications is that cover page now also says cover page and assurance page. The assurance page is where your superintendent signs and it's notarized, and that's exactly the same as the cover page. So that was not clear in the original RFA. That's why it was clarified. So if you go into the new RFA, the updated one, you'll be able to see that change that change was made. But it's the same thing. The other thing that was clarified in that is there wasn't an order shown where the literacy plan needed to be in the original RFA. And we wanted it to be clear that the literacy plan does not have to be within the body of the 25 pages. You will talk about it. You'll talk about your needs and talk about plans, but the actual literacy plan is an attachment. It's not included in the 25 pages. And so if you go to the updated RFA, it's going to show you the order that everything needs to be put in, and you'll clearly see that there is now in red a location for the literacy plan that is outside of those 25 pages. So if you haven't gone in to look, please do, because and please check often. From time to time, people bring something to our attention and we just want to clarify for everyone. And when that happens, we do clarify it on the RFA and then we have it reposted. So it's a really good idea to go back to the RFA and to check it from time to time to make sure that you have the most current copy. But the assurances document is the cover sheet, same thing.
The next question is, can there be more than one page for principal signatures? For example, each principal would have their own sheet.
You can do that if you want. It makes it an awful lot for you to upload. But if you want, there's no reason you can't. You absolutely can do that if you want, but it does make it more pages for you to upload. And sometimes the more pages, sometimes it can be fussy with you sometimes when you upload. So it's up to you. You definitely can do that. I think that it would be that making sure that the name of the school is by the principal so that it's clear what school the principal comes from is important. But it can be on one sheet or it can all be on separate. It doesn't matter. That's another thing that you'll want to make sure that you mask. And I know that that's tricky because it asks for signatures, but then you gotta mask them. So it's kind of odd, but it does show if it has a piece of paper and you show within that you have 7 schools in your district and there are 7 signatures there, even if the name is not visible, if it's masked, we can see that, okay, there's on the principal's page, they have 7 schools and they have 7 principal signatures, even though we can't tell the name of the principal or where they're from on the blind copy. That's fine, but they will count to see if the number of signatures match the number of schools that you have. So do mask those. Those have to be masked as well. Same with your superintendent. You know, when you turn that in, they're not going to be able to see who it is, but they can see that there was something there. It's masked, but they'll see that there's something there. They'll know that it was signed and approved. And those are all things that Danielle and I will look at closely whenever we, you know, after the awards are made. We'll go through and look at all of that again. I see a lot of people here that are also part of Circle. And, you know, just for clarification, you're applying for continuation grant. And things won't be exactly like Circle. There are some things that are different in KyCL, and you will, you know, so you'll have to do things a little different in KyCL, but the continuation is the continuation that refers to the continuation of professional learning that was started in Circle. So whenever you're talking in the grant narrative in that 25 pages where you're talking, you'll talk about what you've done in the past in Circle and what's worked and what you want to see continue. And then you'll also talk about your plan. How can KyCL help you continue the work that you started in Circle? And so you will mention that in your 25-page narrative. If you're brand new, then you're just going to talk about your obviously you won't talk about that. You'll just talk about the needs that you have. Although remember, everybody's going to talk about needs as well. Continuation grant's going to talk about continuing needs. But if you're new, you'll just talk about needs and your plans if you were awarded.
The next question asks, for the previous Circle grant, the cover page, principal signature sheet, etc., we were advised to submit those blank for the blind copy. Is that not the case for KyCL? Should we have a copy we are marking over with a marker or something for signatures and notary?
Yes, the signatures need to be there. I'm not sure why you would have needed to submit anything at all that was blind. I can't speak on that, but you do need to just take what you have and mask it. Yes, take a black marker or whatever you want, or whatever is the best way you could do it digitally, or you could do it with a marker. But it does need to be marked, and your sheet with the signatures does need to be turned in, because like I said, they will take a look at that and they will make sure that, you know, that they have people in your county on board. That's the way the reviewers make sure that people in your district are on board with the plan. It never works to apply for a grant and have somebody at central office only do it and then try to all of a sudden announce to everybody, now you've got to get all these hours of professional learning. It usually causes some upset, and it usually doesn't work as well. It's better to get people on board right from the beginning. And so those signatures show people, the people that are scoring, that you've got people on board. So yes, turn in the signature sheets, and yes, mask the names.
The next question says, please clarify the school letters of interest. We do need one for each school participating, right?
If you look at the letters of interest from the schools, if you want to attach that with your letters, you can. So Danielle, could you let me see if we can pull up the RFA real quick. I'm going to be pulling this up if anybody has another question, because I want to show you something while we're.
There is another question.
Okay.
For continuation, we still need to do the letters from partners as well, correct?
Yes, that's correct. You absolutely do. You would definitely.
And then the district preschool is a community partner or part of the feeder school.
Would you mind to say that again?
Is our district preschool a community partner or a feeder, part of the feeder pattern?
So if it is within your school, then it's going to be a part of your feeder pattern. If it's in your school, it's going to be a part of the feeder pattern. Now, if you want to, if they're typically, if you want to get a letter from them to be a partner as well, like if you're wanting to say they're going to be working with us in this, you're welcome to get that, but you don't have to if they're already in your school, housed in your school, then you do not have to, you don't have to get a partner letter. They would just be a part of your feeder. I'm still trying to pull this up real quickly so that I can show you guys something. But go ahead and ask questions if you have something.
Here's another question, Dana. For the
Okay.
Circle grant, preschool was considered a partner, even though they are a district-run program within the elementary school. So that is not the case with KyCL?
They can be. If you want the preschool to be a partner, even though they're housed in the school, they can be. You can do that either way. There are some districts, even in Circle, that the preschool is a part of their feeder, and there are some that make them a separate partner. And usually, people have made the decision based on the way that they work in their district. So you can do it either way. Either way is fine.
Another question asks, can you clarify how Head Start is a provider? We have partnered with them in our learning.
So Head Start provides professional learning. And if your district is going to use Head Start to provide professional learning for your preschool teachers, then they would be professional learning providers. If it's just a Head Start program and you are not using them as your primary professional learning provider, then obviously they wouldn't be your professional learning provider. But if they are, then if they are providing professional learning for preschool and they're willing to provide it to your other partners, your other preschool partners. So remember that you can use private daycares, home daycares, church daycares. And so if Head Start is providing the professional learning, then what you would want to be sure of is that they're willing to provide it for all of those partners that you have. Does that make sense? Ask a follow-up question if you're not sure about that. Can you see my screen, Danielle?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it now.
Okay, so I want you to notice there's a little bit of red in this because this is the brand new updated RFA. And so if you'll look right here, it says the district cover sheet. And then if you go down in red, the district assurance document is crossed out and it says the assurance document is also the cover page and it will be placed first in your document. So then you're going to have the signature pages for the principals, the partners, and the school councils. You're going to talk about GEPRA, and that's and put a GEPRA statement. None of those, anything that says it's an RFA attachment, none of those are included in the 25 pages. Then if you go down, it says birth to grade 12 feeder system. And so you can put everybody that feeds into your school. And just for clarification, if you wanted to put all of your schools in your feeder system, and then you wanted to also include the preschools and daycares that you're going to partner with at Feed In, it's okay to put that on that form as well. If you for some reason have already done it, or you just only want that to be the schools, it's okay. That really is just to show how schools feed into the high school, because you'll remember that your eligibility for this grant is based on your free and reduced numbers from your high school. And so that feeders paper document just shows us what schools feed into that high school. And if you want to include your partners that are preschool, you can do that on that form. And then you're going to notice that it talks about this is now the 25 pages. That's where you're going to talk about your eligibility. You're going to talk about historically and currently what has been and what is being done in literacy and pre-literacy. You're going to do a little narrative about your literacy plan and your professional learning plan. So that's what's going to be included in those 25 pages. And within that, you're gonna talk about who you selected for each level for your professional learning and why and how they're going to support your need. Then you'll place your literacy plan. Again, it's not included in the 25 pages. That's red because that was not there originally. So to clarify, that will be a separate. Then you're going to put in your itemized district budget with your budget narrative. And make sure that budget narrative is very important, where it explains what those totals are for. And then come the letters. And this is the question that I was asked about the school letters. So letters of interest from each participating school and early child care. They are not included in the 25-page limit. However, every school in your feeder system would give a letter saying that they are, committed to being a part of the grant. And you'll see that there are some questions or some things underneath that you might want to have them address in the letter. Then you'll have partner letters. So you'll have school letters and then you'll have partner letters. And I want you to notice that it says in different, it tries to clearly lay out that you need both early learning providers and community partners. And so both of those need letters, and it talks about it in this part.
Dana, do the letters need to be blinded for submission?
Yes. They don't need, twice, remember, you'll turn it in one copy with names and the other copy without names. So absolutely every single thing has to be blinded, every single thing. So I want to make sure that you hear that clearly, that it will not be scored if the blind copy has any names at all.
Partner letters as well?
Partner letters as well. Every single name of a person or place has to be blind copy. Yes. All letters and everything within your submission. I hope that answers the question about the letters. Please ask a follow-up if it doesn't. I'll be glad to clarify. I'll show you as well while I'm waiting for another question. Let me show you real quickly. Can you see my screen, Danielle?
Yes.
So if you keep going down, you'll notice anything in red is something, dark red is something that was clarified. And if you go down to the very bottom, this is that district cover page and assurances. So you see in red, it clarifies for you, this is the same. This is your cover page. This is your assurances. What other questions do you have? When we get together on the 18th and the 19th on those 2 days of technical assistance, we'll pull up the RFA and we'll talk about, show you parts of it and go through the RFA very in a more detailed way to talk actually writing it. All the questions are going to be posted on November 27th, by the way. So if you look on November 27th, they'll be posted there. We have a lot of questions. And so we have tried to capture every single thing because we want everybody to see it. So we may even, you may even see it before the 27th, but definitely by the 27th, you'll be able to pull that up.
Here's an interesting question, Dana. We have an alternative school that does not have a school council, but does have a principal. Will it flag on the blind copies that there isn't a signature page?
No, I think you need to explain that, though. We've got a lot of schools in Kentucky that have different situations where, as long as you describe it clearly, it won't be a problem at all. So you can have the principal sign, and then you can even leave unmask that, this school does not have is an alternative school and does not have a school council. You can put it right there. You can just write it. So anything you put for clarification is good. You want to remember that the people that are scoring these don't know your district. They don't know anything about it. So they know lots about literacy and about they're going to know what your plan should look like and how you should be addressing professional learning providers. They're going to, understand how your need fits into your plan. So there's a lot that they are going to completely understand, but what they're not going to understand is your situation. And so anytime you can give clarification, give clarification. So if you want to just write in there, it's an alternative school. We don't have a council. It's fine. You just want to give them as much information as you can to make good decisions when they score your application. If you haven't already let principals watch your videos or the vendor videos, I highly suggest that you do that. The vendor videos give lots of good information about the vendors that are already approved, and it's definitely worth taking the time to look at them. Even if you've been in Circle and you think you might know about these vendors, a lot of the professional learning providers have changed components of what they offer to make it more in line with the grant even than it was in Circle. And so I would highly suggest that you take a look at those, and that way you can have that information. And remember that we do have the National Center for Families Learning. If you're in Circle, you probably got an email from me this week. I'm giving you information about them. They provide services for family engagement, and they are a partner of the grant, and they would not be a primary professional learning provider, but they could come in and really help you with family engagement. So you might want to read that. Keep in mind that Imagination Library is a part of ELLP through CLSD or CCLD, and they are. Didn't say that right, did I, Danielle?
Yeah, you did. KyCL. Yeah, you did.
I was getting all those letters
There's so
rolling
many
around on my
acronyms.
tongue. I don't know what I really have no idea what I said, but I remember that Imagination Library doesn't stand on its own. You do have to have training for that, and so you have to be a part of that ELLP early learning project.
Yes.
That provides professional learning, but then also opens up my Imagination Library, and that's written in the grant, but just making sure that that you remember that. Someone had asked yesterday about national boards, and remember that national boards are available. However, this grant is the main part of this grant is paying for professional learning for 100% of your teachers by the time the grant is finished. So keep all that in mind when you're making decisions about what to pay for with your grant money, what to budget for your grant money. But you can pay for national board certification for teachers that want to do that, and you can also pay for one test through national boards with grant funds. If they do not pass the test, the one time that it's paid with grant funds, then either the district or the person would have to pay to take the test multiple times. But that was a question that somebody had, so I thought I would readdress that in case anybody was wondering.
Okay, we have another question from the chat box.
Okay.
This district has DJJ that has no council but does have a principal. They are not a part in this due to the fact that they have to follow their own curriculum. In Circle, we just added the explanation in the 25 pages. Do we do the same for this grant?
Sure. Yes, you can do that.
Another question is, will the KDE National Board Pilot School Program still be available through KyCL?
So you will have to do an elevating evidence packet for that, and you will have to turn that in for approval. And so that's really all I can tell you about that, is that you would have to do the elevating evidence packet, and it would have to be submitted for approval. So I can't tell you for sure that would be paid for with grant funds. So you can pay for individual teachers, because that's professional learning that the teachers are doing to get their national boards. That's already approved, and you don't have to fill out the elevating evidence. But for the school part of national boards, you would have to fill out an elevating evidence packet. You don't have to fill it out before you turn in the application, but if you're awarded, you would have to.
Just to clarify, that's correct, that you would have to, she added a follow-up question, and she said,
Okay.
since that is not a primary provider, that could be done if we were awarded.
That's right.
Yes,
That's
that's
right.
right.
Something that you can wait until you're awarded, and then you would do that. And that's for anything that is any supplemental resources or any supplemental professional learning providers. You don't have to fill out that elevating evidence packet right now, but you would whenever you were awarded. So what's due tomorrow is the elevating evidence packet for people who are wanting to use a main professional learning provider for any of the levels that is not listed on the already as approved on the RFA. Anything else could be done after you're awarded, and you can still talk about them you could still talk about that in your 25 pages. If that's a part of your plan, you could talk about that. If awarded and approved, this is what we plan to do or would like to do. I think if you just keep in mind every time you're thinking about anything related to this grant, if it's going to if it's related to professional learning, if it's going to make teachers stronger at teaching comprehensive literacy, then it's going to be most likely would be approved, because that's what we're looking for. If it's in your literacy plan, which will need, anything you do needs to be in your literacy plan. That's another thing we would be looking for. So just be kind of keeping that in mind. It's important that you have balanced assessment plan and that you have a universal screener, that you have diagnostic, that you have progress monitoring, that you have just a dyslexia screeners. So when you're thinking about what do you have going on right now in your district as far as your balanced assessment plan that gives you information about your kiddos, think if there's any parts of that need to be strengthened, or maybe you're missing a piece of that. And those are some things that you would want to make a plan to make sure that you have a really good, strong literacy assessment plan for your kiddos at all ages. The other thing about KyCL that's different than Circle is in KyCL, you will have to purchase TELD 4. So you could just go ahead and put that in your budget. You can budget $400 for that. And for one kit, if you just look those up, it'll tell you they're about $400 for one kit. And depending on how many kits you need, you would figure that out. But you will have to administer the TELD 4 to 4-year-olds. And that would be all 4-year-olds that are within the grant. So even if it was a private daycare, church daycare, home daycare, any of those would have to, you would have to give the TELD 4 to 4-year-olds. That was a federal grant requirement that we collect data on 4-year-old oral language. And so we in KyCL, we do use TELD, so you will have to purchase that with grant funds, and you'll have to administer that and share the scores, and we would show you how we want that done, but you would have to share the scores with for the TELD. That is different for Circle. Circle used for grants that was already being given, but this is different. This is specifically 4-year-old oral language, and it was a requirement. So you might want to think about all that. Danielle just put information about that, and it was about 400, correct, Danielle?
It's closer to 5.
Okay.
And there are multiple vendors that you can purchase that from. And they're, well, we won't talk about all that right now, but it is something that you will have to purchase. It's a screener that you'll want to give your 4-year-olds.
And you could use any vendor you want. We don't tell you what vendor to use.
Yeah, we don't tell you what vendor to use. It's not listed in the RFA. That's after you've been awarded.
But thinking about your whole assessment plan when you're thinking about your budget is important. And also remembering that the grant cannot pay for things that are already being paid. So if you use MAP in your district, you can't just all of a sudden say, well, let's have the grant pay for MAP from now on. You can't do that. So if you are anything that you're already doing in the district, the grant cannot take over payment. The grant is for helping you add new things to support what you already have going on. And so that's just something to keep in mind.
Someone has mentioned that it does mention TELD 4 in the RFA someplace, so maybe it does. I don't remember seeing it, but.
Yeah, it does. It's down
does.
in,
Okay.
yeah, it's down in the bottom of the RFA where it talks about things that you're expected to do if you're awarded, so that you'll know. And it mentions TELD 4.
Okay.
We only have about 6 minutes. So if there is anything at all on your mind, please ask. I think one of the main things, is, especially if you have been in Circle, is to call those professional learning providers that you thinking about using and really talking through how they can support you. If they've already supported you for 3 years, how are they going to continue supporting you for another 3 years? And so talking with them about that and getting a plan for that is really important. Because if they can't support you for another 3 years of going deeper into strategies or coaching support or building upon strategies, then it might be best to switch. So it's really important for you to talk through that with everyone. Make sure you have a solid plan and that you know what they have to offer, even if you've used them in the past. How will it look if you add more years? Sorry about that ceiling fan. If you've been staring at me, you might be hypnotized. I'm just realizing that my ceiling fan back there is going round and round and round, hopefully. Hasn't hypnotized you. Anybody got any more questions? Well, we appreciate you being here with us today, and glad to be able to answer your questions, and I hope that you'll choose to apply for the grant. I'm super excited about it. I think it's a great opportunity for districts, and I'm really excited about it. So I hope that it's something you'll choose to apply for, and good luck in all that process. And please feel free to join us on the 18th and the 19th at 9 o'clock. And we'll give you more information. And we'll, like I said, just kind of step through parts of the RFA and help you think about actually writing it if you need any more help with that. So, but appreciate all your questions. I think it was good for everybody and maybe made people think of some things that they hadn't thought of before. So. Hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And Danielle and I will stay on for a little bit, but I'll wait till exactly 11 o'clock to stop at answering questions. But at that time, this is an open format for answering questions, and it is a requirement of KDE's that questions and answers are shared with everybody. So we'll answer questions until 11 o'clock, and then after that time, we won't be able to answer anymore. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Hope we were able to give you some good information that'll be helpful.
I have one question.
Yes.
Okay, so we were part of Circle, and then if we want to switch, as long as they're on the approved list of providers, do we have to do the elevating evidence form, or is it just if it's someone who's not on the approved list?
If there is someone who is not on the approved list, anybody not on the approved list, if that you want to use as a primary professional learning provider, you have to do an elevating evidence packet on.
Okay.
Okay. If they're not on the list, if they're on the list, then you don't have to.
So we can just switch if we show the reason why.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And this is a brand new grant, Emily. And so you don't even have to spend you don't even have to really spend a lot of time saying why you want to. The people that are scoring this don't have any, that's not going to be it's just not going to be something that you want to spend a lot of time on and waste your 25 pages on. So you can definitely change. If you want to change professional learning providers, somebody that you used in Circle, you don't want to use anymore and you want to use somebody else, then you can talk about that, but you don't even have to talk about that very long. You can absolutely do it.
Thank you very much.
No problem with that. What you could do though, Emily, is it would be important for you to talk about how your work is going to continue though, because when you apply as a continuation grant, they're going to look to see how you want to continue work that you've done. So it doesn't have to be the same provider, but if you talk about the literacy gains that you feel like you've made and benefits and how you want that to continue in KyCL and how being a part of KyCL could support your teachers' continued literacy growth, then that would be something that would be good for you to talk.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
One last question in the chat, Dana. When do we need to submit elevating evidence forms for supplemental providers?
Supplemental providers is something that you can wait until you're awarded, and when you're awarded, we'll give you a deadline at that time. The awards will be done in the spring, and we would meet with everybody that's awarded. Danielle and I will have a meeting with everybody that's awarded. We'll go through the whole plan, the whole budget, and at that time, we will tell you when you need to be turning in that elevating evidence for any supplemental professional learning provider or resources. So it's not something you have to worry about now. It's not needed for the application. Only if you're wanting a primary professional learning provider for any level that's not listed in the RFA, then you would want to turn that in before the 6th to be approved. But if you are just adding supplemental providers or resources, you could do that after you're awarded.
Okay, it's 11:02.
Okay, well, I am going to stop the recording. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks.